One of the things I've struggled with, and this is just full transparency, is if I'm going to sit with me, then I'm going to have to listen to what goes on up in the mind. And a lot of times I don't want to hear the bullshit that my mind is telling me. And so sitting became torturous. I'll never forget the first time I laid in one of those flotation tanks where it's a sensory deprivation tank. I thought that might be a good idea to test that out. And when the lights went off and the sound went away, I was like, I'm going to lie here with nothing other than my thoughts for an hour. I may go crazy. And so I started to really unpack, what do I do with those thoughts that make me crazy? And one of the things I found really worked for me was walking. If I had a pattern of thought that wasn't working, just go for a walk, like move. And it was almost like the thoughts that didn't serve me just started to like leak out and move away, and a calmer thought that came in. Another tool that I found was transcendental meditation, where I actually had a mantra that I could focus on. And then those thoughts could kind of come up and out. Breath work, all kinds of breath work became incredibly helpful to just hear better thoughts inside my head. So I wanted to sit with me. Now, those are the only three I know, but help the person who's like, this sounds beautiful, but you don't know what goes on up in my head. Or this sounds amazing, but I had a trauma as a child. And when I sit still, that trauma really, rears its ugly head. How do we give that person a toolbox to self-connect?
And so firstly, thank you so much for sharing. Secondly, I understand, I'm going to predicate what I'm about to say, that, some resources are more expensive than others. The walk is free, but the one that really moved me, and I talk extensively about my trauma in the book, the one that really moved the needle for me is talk therapy. It doesn't work for everyone. I'm a talker. Okay, I speak for a living. So, and I have like the whole Crayola box of colors for every word I want to use, And I wanted to say, the first time I tried the sensory deprivation pod, it was the same for me. But now I'm so bad that I'm craving to go back in it, because I'm like you. Now I'm like, give it to me. So the point of that is, be compassionate with yourself. It takes time, and I really want to talk to you as someone who's a little bit older than me, big sister. I'm turning 40 this year, and my tolerance level for BS has tanked. Did that happen for you a bit later, do you think, because of the people pleasing?
Yeah. Yeah, and so you bring up a really interesting point, because, and this is the topic of my next book, which is after 40, I call it the neurochemical armor starts to come down. And the neurochemical armor looks like you start losing first progesterone. And with progesterone, she brings GABA. And so GABA is a calmer and progesterone is a calmer. So as she goes away, all of a sudden irritability, people say the wrong thing. I mean, this is where intersection of your work and my work would be really interesting to create, like a course or something like that, because if you were already a lonely person and people already agitated you, which I'm not saying that's you, when progesterone goes away and takes GABA with her, you are easily agitated and irritated. And the littlest things will just set you off. But that's not the only one. Estrogen, as she starts to go away in your 40s, she actually stimulates serotonin, dopamine, acetylcholine, oxytocin, which is the connection hormone, BDNF. So when she goes away, she takes her gang with her. I call it the girl gang. She takes the girl gang with her. So so as you're going through your 40s, you're losing 10 neurochemicals. But here's why work like yours and mine is so important. If you understand that at 40, you can start to do the work we're talking about right now. You can start to find that connection to yourself. You can start to work on your traumas. You can clean up your lifestyle, because if you do, then it's incredible, because I can tell you at 54, I am like, I don't give a fuck anymore about what anybody thinks of me. Like and I say things, sometimes I blurt things out and I'm like, I would have never said that in my 30s. And that's the neurochemical armor shedding. And that's why these kind of conversations are so important, because we need to step into another toolbox.
Absolutely. This is like when I remember learning about, grumpy old men, how, like, be careful of that teacher, he's cantankerous. Yeah. And that was because they were losing testosterone, and no one ever talks about it in terms of women. Yes. And so I think that this is going to be life-changing. And also, one of the things that happened when we launched my book was Hay House and I, we did something to try and get, because I live in Asia, but more people where Hay House has normally historically been dominant in markets like Australia, where I grew up, but the US and the UK. And so a whole bunch of new women came onto my email list, but a large grouping of them, because we were trying to solve the loneliness issue, right? The way I would get the replies, the angry replies on my email list if I did a blast out, I knew they were all to do with the lonely brain. I got one the other day from a guy that said, I'm 50. This is, by the way, these phrases are great identifiers if you're lonely, okay? A guy writes back on the email list and says, Simone, remove me off your email list. I'm 50. I'm a lost cause. No book or anything will ever help me. And my phrase when I was cleaning my mum's hoard after she became paralyzed and I was alone was, there is no other 29-year-old with a father in the grave and a mother in a wheelchair. And I used that statement to stop me going out. So if this is clinging off, and a lot of these people that we got to know and added to the list were in that menopausal demographic, like that age bracket. And so now you're breathing life into something that I've been seeing on an incidental level through the emails that are coming through, like really agitato, very agitato, but that totally makes sense. If your hormones are going haywire and you're lonely, it's stacked against you.
Yeah. And this is why conversations like this is really important, because what I'm trying to help women is to feel seen and to feel heard.